Welcome to Faith on Film. I'm Isaac Hernandez.
And I'm Holly McClure.
And we are here to keep you informed on what is happening in the world of faith and family entertainment. Holly, how you doing?
Doing great and excited about our guest today.
Yes. Did you know that our guest today is known for having the lead role in what went on to become the most watched TV show in the world? Do you know what that is?
Well, I watched it, so I'm pretty sure I know what others watch. Hercules, yeah.
Ding, 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 ding.
No,
You got that correct. And of course, following that,
we've seen him in other things, right?
Well, yeah, of course. I mean, he's gone on to do like over 90 movies and TV shows, including, of course, the very popular God's Not Dead.
Right.
And of course, right now he's here because he not only acted, but directed the latest version of Left Behind, which of course is based on the Jerry Jenkins books, Rise of the Antichrist. The movie, of course, comes out January 26th. And I want to make sure and I give it this year because if somebody watches it after the rapture, they can still watch. They won't watch it on the theaters, but they can still watch it. They can still watch it online somewhere and know what happened to them and why they're still here.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, so January 26, 2023. We're still here right now. But listen, before we bring him on, what do you say we take a look at the trailer real quick, and then we'll come back and talk to him. All righty?
If someone had told me that millions of people were just going to disappear, I, like you, would have said they were crazy.
Was it the rapture?
Yes. Yes, it was.
Are you sure? I mean, are you really sure?
I saw it happen.
Those weren't vanishings.
It wasn't the rapture. The rapture was debunked on the first day.
The second wave of vanishings has thrown the financial markets back into chaos.
Trust me. You want to make sure you're on the right team.
You're already teaching them the art of fake news?
I just wish I could see you one more time. Why are you still here?
Because I asked God to leave me behind.
We don't need to look for magic. They're not a bunch of religious wackos.
Wackos like my mom.
Fortunately, we have a solution. We can implement Eat and Pay worldwide in a matter of weeks. Welcome to the future.
I got to look inside the Eat and Pay platform, and it's a whole lot more than a glorified bank card.
So you're just admitting to being crazy?
Yes, I'm quite comfortable with that. When it is all over, half the world will be dead.
This is the biggest news story since the vanishings.
You listen to me. You drag this line of nonsense into the public eye. We're both finished.
Now I'm more like an actor.
The Antichrist will declare himself as God.
Seemed like a stretch even for them.
How do we know who we can trust?
Trust God.
The world is suffering. We are on the brink of mass insanity.
What happens to the rest of us?
Doesn't it seem strange that it's still so easy to dismiss it, even though we saw it with our own eyes?
Kevin, welcome to Faith on Film.
Dun, dun, dun. Yes. Good to be here, guys. Good to be here.
Yeah, hey, did you know, by the way, that you also have the distinction of being the only guest that's been on Faith on Film 3 times now?
All right. I'm very honored.
Yes,
because I keep putting out good movies with good messages, and I appreciate you guys supporting that.
That's exactly
That's
what
right.
it is.
That's right. And this is a good movie with a good message, right? I mean, speaking of the message, we've heard of other Left Behind books before, but boy, Isaac, you were saying it was interesting because there's something unique about this one that Kevin's going to talk about.
I certainly hope he does. Yes, of course, there's been 3 movies in the past that were done back in, I think it was 2000, the year 2000, and then they did a 4th one, which was, I think, a remake of the first one back in like 2014, and this now is a sequel to that one that was done in 2014. Is that right, Kevin?
Yep, that's it. I took over the role that Nicolas Cage was in. I played the Rayford Steele role, the pilot for the movie. Mm-hmm. And it's 6 months now. It's 6 months after the rapture. It's 6 months of people in the world trying to figure out what the heck happened. And, the world is under chaos, but there's also people kind of waking up going, oh, my gosh, I was wrong. And with my character, I realized that I didn't pay attention to what my wife was telling me all along, and even my son, because they were taken in the rapture. Right. So he starts really on a journey on his own to find out, his own sort of quest to really figure out and what he needs to do to amend for his non-belief. And it's an interesting journey for him. And there's it's very prophetic, this thing, because you look at what's going on in the world right now. Even you feel like the rapture is well on its way because it's in the Bible. If you read the book of Revelation, which my pastor used to say, read that book, it'll scare the hell out of you. I just thought that it's very fascinating. It's very interesting that I hope that when people watch this movie, and I hope they bring their friends. I think it's easy to ask people that don't have a belief, they're agnostic or atheists, to say, hey, do you want to go see this movie with me? It's a fascinating movie. They can look at it as a sci-fi movie. Because you read the book of Revelation, when I was a kid, I thought it was like a sci-fi. I thought, my gosh, this is crazy. But it's pretty interesting. And this movie is, we made it very up to date. It's very modern with what we did with it, the changes in there. We even got a wonderful plug from Jerry Jenkins himself. I talked to Tim LaHaye years ago before he passed. And I wish he was still around, but Jerry loved this movie. He said by far it's the best of all of them that's ever been done. So it is darker. I think that's an interesting element of it, that it's not sort of what past movies of it look like. And Neil McDonald's fantastic in it. Bailey Chase, Corbin Burnson. My wife did a great job in it. In fact, there's a scene I have with her that turned out far better. Even when I read this scene, I thought, oh, this is going to be a good scene. It turned out much better than I thought it was going to turn out. It's a very emotional, very touching scene. My son is in it. They loved him so much. They actually wrote him more parts in it, the writers. Paul Lalonde and Jessica Parker up there in Cloud 10. And they're going to do a sequel to this one, and hopefully we're going to be I'll be directing that one as well later this year.
Speaking of directing, and you mentioned your wife and your son, how hard was it to direct yourself and your family? Is it hard being a director of your own, family?
Well, I've done it before. I did it in Left Behind, not Left Behind. I did it in Let There Be Light, which did very well in theaters. That was at about 4 years ago. Had a 4-month run in theaters. And my wife and I have actually worked together in a number of the movies before and since, and we actually met on the set of Hercules back in the day. So we actually just celebrated our 25th wedding anniversary, which is, I told her in Hollywood, if you married someone 10 years, that's like a golden anniversary in Hollywood years. So.
It is. And if it's 25, it's considered a miracle. You're in that category.
Gosh, it's a miracle. Unless you married 4 or 5 times, then maybe it adds up to 25.
Exactly. Good for you guys. Good for you.
Yeah. Now, Kevin, what ultimately drew you to want to do this movie when you read the script?
I read the book years ago, and actually, it's kind of a weird full circle for me because I've known Dallas Jenkins for a long time, who's just doing amazing work with The Chosen right now. And back in 2010, he gave me a script, and he just wanted me to read it. We were friends back then. He said, hey, I got a script, and think your thoughts. I read it on an airplane. I was laughing. I was crying. It was a very wonderful script. And I said, who's playing Pastor Ben in this movie? He said, well, I got this guy and that guy. I said, no, I'm playing it. He says, man, I can't afford you. And I said, pay me scale. Pay me whatever this SAG union says is the lowest you can pay somebody to act in a movie, because I love this movie. And actually, you mentioned God's Not Dead. Well, What If is written by Chuck and Kerry, the same guys who did God's Not Dead. In my book, What If is a far better movie. The trouble with these independent movies, I don't have a $100 million James Cameron budget to promote my $300 million movie like he does. We need word of mouth. And I highly recommend people love God's Not Dead. Please watch What If. But Jerry Jenkins actually funded that movie. Dallas Jenkins directed it. And then now I'm doing Jerry Jenkins movie about one of his books. So this is an honor for me to be part of his family. And when that movie came out in 2014 that you mentioned with Nicolas Cage, they got inundated. When I say they, Paul Lalonde up there at the Cloud 10, the company out of Toronto that owns all the rights to the books. And they said, we had so many emails and letters from people saying, why is Kevin Sorbo not playing the part of Rayford Steele? So they came to me 8 years ago.
Wow.
And 2 years ago, they said, okay, we're finally ready to get this movie made. So I directed it and started a year ago at this time. And now it's done, and now it's coming out in theaters. And we need people to go to leftbehindmovie.com, leftbehindmovie.com. It shows you the trailer that you just saw. It shows you the theaters of where it's showing near you. We got 1,500 screens in America. So please support this movie so it stays in theaters longer than a weekend, okay? Because
absolutely.
We need this message out there to as many people as we can get. So please tell your churches, tell your religious leaders, get people to go and put those butts in those seats.
Absolutely. Years ago, Kevin, I interviewed Kirk Cameron and was involved with promoting the first Left Behind, and seeing how that was done. Seeing this one, like you mentioned, touched on earlier before, it is more believable today than it was years ago for all that we've got technology-wise, for how the government, they're turning on Christians, for what's happening. This is, don't you believe, ripe for the times?
Oh, yeah, because, I mean, we even talk about one world government in there. They've been talking about that for years now. We're getting closer to it. They want to control everything of our lives right now. And these governments all want to work together to have all the power and all control for a small minority of leaders and groups. But trust me, they're well on their way to make that happen, where you get one currency, where you get one, everything is going to be just, this would be so much easier. And people are like sheep. People are sheep. I'm here to wake up the lions. I'm a lion. I know you guys are lions. We need to wake up the world to the reality of what the governments are trying to do, because the biggest thing is fear. I got a shirt on here right now that says freedom over fear. So we need to fight that and not let. You saw what they did with COVID. They used fear as a weapon to control our lives, and we can't let that happen.
Yeah. Well, one thing that I found very interesting here was in the movie, and it wasn't for a long scene, but they alluded to, or you guys alluded to, aliens, basically, from outer space.
Sure.
And I was thinking of how in the past year or so, there's been a lot of chatter about, suddenly about aliens and, aliens being spotted here, and the government has been keeping secrets, but now it's coming out, sort of already preparing us for what you guys talked about in the movie, that the people will say, the vanishings are just aliens that came and took the people. So I thought that was very interesting.
Well, because we always try to look for explanations from one way or another. We don't want to really look at the truth of the situations. And the whole alien thing, I can see that happening. If people go, well, what happened? And then you got religious leaders that are still left behind. Because there's a lot of people. You look at the churches in America right now. There's a lot of woke pastors out there. I'm not surprised if pastors get left behind, because they're so afraid of working their congregation down to a manageable size. They just want to have anybody keep coming to church right now. I mean, why is it, do you think, the government said churches are not essential during COVID? The strip clubs are, and the liquor stores are essential, but not churches. And close down the parks. Don't go in the parks. Everything they told us about COVID was opposite of what it should have been doing. Number one, certainly we needed churches. We need that sort of that camaraderie together to surpass the fear that people are feeling. You needed to go out in parks and run around and stay healthy. Why did the government tell us not to? Why close down the gyms? It was insane what they did. I look at these things all as tests. I don't deny that COVID was a real thing and it was killing people, because it certainly was. But the vast majority of the people dying were what? There were people that were overweight, people that had pre-existing conditions, people that were older. It wasn't high school kids. It wasn't kids that are young. They got the strongest immune systems around. But look at what they did to us, and everything was because of fear. And to me, I look at this thing, it was a giant test to see how we would react. And the sheep and people showed up big time, and we need people to stop being it. And our government, remember, it's called We the People. It's not we the big government.
Well, I love the fact that you and Neil McDonough and Corbin Burnson, and you named some others, you guys, started off in secular Hollywood doing secular things, especially, with Neil with Yellowstone. He plays the best villain ever.
It was great.
But now you guys are coming together and showing that you can be, actors in good films. It doesn't have to just be faith-based, but films with good messages. I love that we're seeing these stars in these movies. I mean, traditionally Christian films, we don't know who the lead actor or actress is, and they kind of work their way up. But I love it that a little bit of Hollywood's visited now the faith-based films and made them better.
I think it's changing a little bit. I mean, I think within the people like what the Kendrick brothers are doing, what the Irwin brothers are doing. Rich Peluso and Sony Affirm, what they're doing. I mean, I think there's a lot of people that are trying to get better messages out there, because there's 80 million homes in America that want movies like the movies that I do. They want movies that they can take their families to. I get stopped all the time through airports, hotel lobbies, whatever it may be, and people stop me and say, hey, keep doing what you're doing. And it's not Hercules they're talking about. It's not Andromeda they're talking about the movies that I'm doing, like Let There Be Light, God's Not Dead, Soul Surfer, Abel's Field. They're talking about movies like that. And there's a market out there, and Hollywood is very slow to wake up to it because of the power of the negativity towards the Christian and conservatives in this country through the media. I mean, every movie you see in Hollywood that has a Christian or a conservative, they're always the buffoons, they're always the idiots, they're always the clowns. And that's the message they keep pushing and sending out with their agenda, to say don't follow these people because they're a bunch of bozos. But at the same time, they have movies that promote sexuality, they promote violence, hate, anger, divisiveness. I mean, every time there's any kind of a shooting somewhere, you get these A-list actors come in and say, we got to get rid of guns. And these are the same hypocrites, these same actors that just killed 100 people in their latest movie with guns. So, the mentality of the government and the big studios of Hollywood is do as I say, not as I do. That's what their mantra is.
I'm just curious, have you ever gotten feedback from the government or any threats or any, because you speak out, you're pretty verbal and vocal speaking out.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure they're watching a little bit. I mean, Facebook took me down for posting the truth. What they said were conspiracy theories. So I put on Facebook, I put on Twitter about 6 months ago because everything I said about whether it's COVID or whatever else has come true. So I say I need more conspiracy theories because all of mine keep coming true. So I hope people follow me on Twitter at least. Go to K-Sorbs, follow me on Twitter.
Right.
I say very funny things, very sarcastic things, but they're sarcastic truth at the same time.
Yeah, I do follow you on Twitter, and I laugh every time I see one of your tweets.
Absolutely.
Aren't you worried, though? I mean, it's more than just Facebook taking you off. Aren't you worried that maybe it could get even, a little bit more dangerous if the government really starts to crack down on people?
Well, I think, like I said earlier, I think more and more people are starting to agree with what people like me were saying 2 years ago or 3 years ago or a decade ago. It's not just me out there with that kind of voice. Elon Musk, look what he's doing. I'm just trying to do movies that give somebody an alternative and that have, what Hollywood used to do, movies that had love and hope and faith and redemption and laughter in it. They don't want to do those anymore. Everything they deal with just deals with very evil things. It's just dark and evil, and people live sad lives. And I think that's what you get, like on Twitter. I've got a lot of followers on Twitter, but I get those same 10 robots and trolls that attack me every time. And I feel sorry for these guys because these are people that look in the mirror every day and hate what they see. They do not like who they are, do not like how their lives turned out. So they attack you, they attack me because they're hoping they can drag us down the black hole that they live in. Because all their anger and hate does towards other people is make them more angry and more hateful. And that's what a sad way to live every day like that. I mean, what a horrible way to live with no hope in your life.
Another positive thing that you and Sam do is you speak up for homeschool. And I love that because I think more and more people in this nation too, as well as politically and for other reasons, are pulling their kids out of school and homeschooling.
That's where the fear of the COVID thing backfired on them because they didn't think about that. A lot of parents woke up to how bad our public schools are. Even though they probably knew it, they just didn't want to admit to it. So it really exposed how horrible it is right now and the agendas they're pushing on our kids. Because my wife's book is my favorite of her homeschooling books, is the one titled "They're Your Kids." And people forget that. And we also found out how crappy our school boards are. So there's 2 million more kids now being homeschooled, 2 million more. So that's one of the godsends of COVID.
Interesting. Just yesterday, I heard the head of the teachers union come out and flip. And now she's saying that staying at home doesn't work. Now, remember, she's the one that was pushing for everybody to stay at home. Now she's flipped and said staying at home doesn't work. But what's happening is now the parents are saying, I don't think I want to send them back to school anymore. So it did backfire.
Yeah, and you guys are doing great with that.
We need to take the public education out of government. It's never done any good with it. It's only gotten worse through the decades. I mean, when you were in school and I was in school, I don't remember any teachers telling me how to vote. Any teachers telling me not to believe in God. They taught the subjects that they were hired to teach. It has changed drastically over the last 25 years.
Yeah, and we prayed and we said the pledge. I mean, we did things for America, pro-America.
One nation under God, guys. One nation under God.
And we've got to keep that. Well, gosh, applause. Go ahead.
If they want to keep changing the country, go to the countries of their choice. If they want communism, socialism, go to North Korea, go to Venezuela, go to Cuba. Right. Nobody's taking boats from Key West to Cuba. Have you noticed that? Nobody's rushing the border to get into Mexico, and there's reasons for that.
I just saw stats that they posted that said that baby boomers were like 70-something% pro-American, and they went on down to Gen Z, and then to the very youngest group, only 17% were proud to be American. And I want to say what you just said. Well, then let's put you on a boat and send you to our plane and send you to another country. Let you live there for 6 months is all it would take, and you'd be begging to come
Let's
home.
use our tax dollars to do that for people because it's crazy. Right. I'm tired of our tax dollars going to all these other countries that hate us. You know what? Because they can hate us for free. We don't got to keep spending our money on them.
Good point. I love the point you're making. Oh, gosh, you just need your own show. You need your own Fox show so you can get out.
I thought about it, but I don't know. I just keep making movies. And I hate to do this, but I got to run. Yes. I got another interview coming up soon.
Thank you, Kevin, for being with us. Thank you for getting your time. We will promote your movie Left Behind. And
leftbehindmovie.com, and go to sorbostudios.com as well, Sorbo Studios. And by the way, my wife and I are hosting another trip to Israel. We only have 8 spots left open. 52 are sold. Go to sorboisraeltrip.com, sorboisraeltrip.com, and we leave May 17th through 28th. Walking in the footsteps of Jesus. You guys will love it.
Thank you, Kevin, again. Thank you so much.
Yes.
God bless. God bless all you're doing.
Well, Holly, that was a great interview there with Kevin. I look forward to seeing the movie, of course. And if anybody wants to know more about it, just go to the website that you see there on the bottom of your screen. What was it? leftbehindmovie.com, I believe it was.
Yes. And then he also really encouraged people to follow him on Twitter and other social media because he does love to give feedback and comments. And I like Kevin. He really engages with the audience. He engages with the everyday man, the Christian people. He's not, an elitist Hollywood person. He's so friendly. I mean, I've met him several times and interviewed him for films, and he's just a great guy. And I'm proud of what he's doing and what others, like we said, Neil McDonough and Corbin Burnson and other greats are doing. John Schneider, in the faith-based films. I mean, they're really trying to take a stand and make better films. And so we have to encourage them to do that.
True. Now, of course, there is movies that are coming out in Hollywood that are not faith-based movies, but are they okay for us to watch?
And they're really not.
No.
First one, Puss in Boots, The Last Wish. Okay. Cats have 9 lives, so it's based on the 9 lives thing. And of course, it's Antonio Banderas and Salma Hayek. All right. It's got a 96% on the tomato meter and a 93% on audience. So I know it's high ratings, and you have to pay attention to that. So I'm probably not the best person to ask, but first of all, it's PG-13. Isn't Puss in Boots a kid's movie? Isn't it like for kids? So wouldn't it stand to reason that it'd be a PG or a G for Puss in Boots? But no, they want the teenagers to go see Puss in Boots. So I'm a little astounded by the rating and thrown off. I'm probably a diehard and a relic at this point. But I still take a stand that parents, you got to look at the rating. If it's PG-13 and you've got a 7-year-old, I'd pay attention to that, even if it's an animated film. I mean, clearly there's some crude language or some, crude bathroom humor.
I was going to say, what are the ingredients in it?
Yeah, and, the violence because he's fighting, and sword fighting and all that. And again, when I was in the theater, I looked around, I'm like, okay, who's here? And there was, of course, little kids that parents brought, but there were teenagers. And I was surprised, like several groups of like 12, 13, 14, 16 preteens and teens that came to watch us. And I'm thinking, why would they want to come see this movie? And then I think there's a loyalty to Antonio Banderas. And I think it's that if they watched it as a kid, they want to follow it all the way through. Maybe that's it, because I really don't understand the appeal. But anyway, not one of my favorites.
What else?
Well, okay, I'll tell you another one that's really not my favorite. So again, you guys may like the Puss in Boots. You might like that, okay? Because it was me. It's not my favorite animation. Kind of tired of the story. Okay, one more time. Let's go back. Let them fight. Blah blah. It's like a Hallmark movie. You can predict every scene. But the thing that I saw that I thought, okay, I really want to go see. I know the ending. The Whitney Houston. I Want to Dance with Somebody.
Okay.
This is rated PG-13. I had a little bubble burst because I did not realize that Whitney Houston had a gay relationship. And I did not realize that her first relationship sexual was with a woman, and that became her friend who followed her through the early part of her career and who got her on drugs and at the very beginning on some things. And then she stayed with her till she married Bobby. And of course, then when she married Bobby, it got even worse. And then they had a feud, and it was like all this drama. And the good thing is, if you love Whitney Houston songs, which I do, I took my daughter to a Whitney Houston concert when she was 7 years old, and she took flowers down to the stage, and Whitney came over and said, "Thank you, my dear," and picked up the flowers and said, "Thank you," and she was singing. So I personally had this great touch connection where I'm like, okay, and I've, of course, reviewed all her movies and, Bodyguard and everything else. So I thought, okay, I'll go see this movie. I know how it ends, but hopefully there's some good things in it. And when it was over and over, the drug use and then the sexual things and the heat that she got in the press, which clearly I was oblivious to that at the time, I guess, it was sad. And Isaac, I walked out of there and I got in my car, and I'm not kidding you, I started kind of crying. I'm like, why am I crying? I know the ending to this. And I think it was weeping for what could have been, weeping for how she loved the Lord, because it did touch on how she loved God, and it did touch on how she kept trying to go back to that. And the world kept pulling her back in, and evil kept pulling her back in, and the choices she made kept pulling her back in. And I think that's what made me teary-eyed and so sad, is that so many people are sucked into that life and thinking, oh, this is glamour. And, if the big Whitney Houston, we knew some of her story, but to find out the rest of that, I just thought it was a sad commentary on her life. And you don't walk out of there going, well, I feel better. Well, I'm happy. I'm glad I saw that movie. The only thing you like is hearing the songs, but it's overshadowed. Stanley Tucci is in it. You know, of course, he plays Clive Davis. At the very end, Clive Davis, I guess, had a homosexual relationship. So they're showing her walking in and he's with a guy in his living room, not sexually, but it was just like, you get so hammered with it in so many movies and so many things these days. I just was exhausted, and it left me feeling drained and sad.
So would you say that they just focused too much on the negative part of it and not, because there must have been some positive things in her life?
Well, they showed her getting #1 hits, and she had the most #1 of, the Beatles. They showed her climbing the charts. You know, you heard all the songs, I Want to Dance. You heard how she chose the songs. You heard her say, he said, I've got a little movie called, Bodyguard. And she's like, I don't want to do this movie. And she threw it on the ground. And then he goes, yeah, Kevin Costner stars in it. She picks it up and goes, okay. And Kevin Costner, wanted her and chose her. And they don't show Kevin. They show a clip of him as if she's filming a scene in the other room. And he's on the screen like they're filming a scene, and then she's doing drugs in the other room. Wow. So it just overshadowed by that. So I would say don't go see that. You've already seen it on bios. You've already seen it on TV. Okay. You've already seen it in documentaries.
All right. Well, I do want to talk about something real quickly here before we end the show that is sad, but at the same time, it's actually exciting. And that is the fact that we recently lost what I call a general of the faith, and that was, of course, Pastor Jack Hayford. I had the opportunity of working with him quite a bit, actually, several times when I was at TBN, whether he was a guest on Praise the Lord or actually he would host Praise the Lord from time to time. And I got to tell you, he was a wonderful man. So we certainly are going to miss him here, but it's great that he's joining so many other generals that have gone on really in the past 5 years or so. A lot of them are heading home.
And you said it's exciting. I looked more of as like a happy homecoming for him. He gets to go home and be with the Lord. I interviewed him back when I was on KKLA in the 90s, and then did some other shows. I had him on to interview, and then met him, of course, went to his church. You're right, Isaac. He was such a sweet, kind man. Such a gentle spirit when you talked to him. And he looked right at you when you spoke to him. He would look at you. And it's sad for us because, like you said, all the generals are leaving. Who's left to lead us, Isaac?
I'm not sure there's anybody that is going to step up to the plate, which, we just interviewed Kevin about the movie Left Behind. I think maybe we need to have that rapture happen pretty soon, because I don't know that there's anybody left.
And maybe we can look up people like Kevin and others as kind of generals in the movies that are out there trying to get a message and make it. But for the old standards that we grew up with, Latim LaHaye's, again, Pastor Jack, and people like that. I don't know. It's you know what it is? It's also that era lost. We've lost an era, and an era you and I grew up in. An era you and I grew up in that loved the Lord and was proud to be American and proud of America.
That's true. It also kind of makes us look at the fact that we're getting close to it ourselves.
Yes, we are.
I don't even want to go there. Well, anyway, folks, thank you for joining us for today's show. We want to invite you to write us at faithonfilmtv@gmail.com. That's faithonfilmtv@gmail.com. And, of course, you can always follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Faith on Film. And we want them to do what, Holly? Go to YouTube
and like it, subscribe, hit that button, subscribe to us, please, because it helps us with the following that we get to get on more outlets, because they look at that. So thank you very much for being faithful and following that and doing that. And, Isaac, we'll probably be doing this in the millennium. Maybe we'll God assign us a show in the millennium, and we'll have a show where we'll be bringing in the lost.
I do look forward to that. Absolutely. Well, folks, yes, go ahead, Holly.
No, God bless. Thank you so much.
There you go, folks. See you next week.